Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. You call this a D-level ability. Chapter 1. Since the disaster day 300 years ago, awakened ones have been born on Blue Star. According to data released by the country, more than 50% of citizens can successfully awaken, possess their own abilities, and become awakened people. Once you become an awakener, you can choose to join the Academy of Awakeners to systematically learn ability knowledge to fight against void beasts in the future, or become a researcher to study knowledge about void beasts. And among the awakened ones, those with sufficient strength can become void hunters, hunting void beasts and defending the country. And today's awakening day is the time to test whether you have the chance to become awakened. In a classroom in Jincheng, a Mediterranean teacher was talking eloquently. Suddenly, a piece of white light reflected from his thick glasses, and the chalk in his hand suddenly flew out like a bullet, heading towards the back door of the classroom. Shui, you're late again. Ouch! The student next to the back door screamed when his head was accurately hit with chalk. At the same time, a young man with handsome features grabbed the shoulders of this classmate with both hands, coughed dryly, and poked his head out from behind him with a strange face. Hey, good morning, Teacher Wang. This is already the 22nd time you've been late this month. Teacher Wang slammed the table angrily, eyes wide with anger. Isn't there still 8 days left? It's not like I've been late for a whole month. Shui put his deskmate Wang Peng, who was full of resentment, back to his seat, muttered, stood up, and sat back in his seat. Those 8 days are weekends. Teacher Wang's head was smoldering with anger, and his voice was a bit high-pitched. And after 8 o'clock, the school door automatically closes. How on earth did you sneak in? You're talking about the electronic access control. Shui touched his nose and blinked. When I showed it in the information class before, I left a little back door. You hacked into the school server. Teacher Wang's eyes widened. Just as he was about to say something, a teacher walked in at the door. Teacher Wang, it's time, let the students gather in the auditorium. Thinking of the importance of the awakening day, Teacher Wang could only glare at Shui, then waved his hand and said loudly, all students gather and line up to the auditorium. At the end of the team, Wang Peng and Shui walked side by side, giving a thumbs up with admiration. Brother Yi, as expected of you, you even dare to invade the school server. Shui yawned and replied nonchalantly, it's easy to say, after all, the firewalls used by the school are the most basic, and the country. His words stopped abruptly, and he changed the topic very smoothly. There is no difference from the working principle in the past, and it is not difficult to crack it. But let me tell you, when I entered the school server this time, I saw a lot of things. Our principal actually sent a message to a female teacher in private. He and Wang Peng were whispering behind each other and followed the team until they finally arrived at the school auditorium. Along with the bustling noise, the auditorium, which could hold thousands of people, finally became quiet as a few people in suits walked onto the podium. I heard that many teachers from the Awakened College came this time. Wang Peng said in a low voice, there are also top 10 colleges among them. I read the news 2 days ago, and it was said that Longxia College, the #1 college, also sent people to our city. I just don't know if they come to our school. As far as I know, if during the awakening test, an ability above level A is awakened, the teachers in these colleges will fight for it like crazy. If I could awaken S-level abilities, these teachers would have to fight on the spot. If they could awaken SS-level abilities, they would probably have to kneel on the ground, hold their legs and beg to join their academy. As for the legendary SSS-level abilities, well, forget about that. Over the years, there have only been 3 SSS-level abilities in total. It is impossible for our school to have them. I don't have high demands, as long as I can awaken an A-level ability. He looked up and looked ahead, with hope in his eyes and muttering in his mouth. Ability. Shui looked forward calmly, his eyes flickering, not knowing what he was thinking. 3 years have passed since he traveled to this world. Although this is also Blue Star, it has a completely different world structure and background from his previous life. The existence of awakened persons, abilities, and virtual beasts greatly shocked his outlook on life. He also spent a whole year collecting all kinds of information and intelligence before accepting this matter. On the disaster day 300 years ago, Blue Star was invaded by a race called the Void Demon. During this process, the virtual demon released a certain kind of creature called the virtual beast. With absolutely crushing power, it slaughtered millions of humans on the first day of the virtual beast's arrival. At the same time, certain people with special abilities, called awakened ones, were born among humans. They possess powers that are comparable to superpowers, and they can fight against virtual demons and kill those raging virtual beasts. The war lasted for a full 100 years, and it was not until the first existence of the Kunlun realm Teodi was born in the Dragon Kingdom that the war situation changed. Under the leadership of Teodi, nearly 70% of the virtual demons located in the Dragon Kingdom were killed, and the strongest among them was seriously injured by Teodi, and was eventually forced to retreat from the Dragon Kingdom. In this disaster, most of the countries on Blue Star perished, leaving only 5 countries. After being severely damaged, the virtual demon established a country between the 5 major countries, occupying nearly 70% of Blue Star, and has been waiting for an opportunity to invade the 5 countries again. During these hundreds of years, human beings have also been rapidly studying the affairs of the awakened ones, and fixed it on the year when the students are 18 years old and their senior year of high school, and conduct unified awakening tests. On the high platform, the teacher in a suit and leather jacket was eloquent and kept delivering impassioned speeches. Shuyi's consciousness had already drifted to the sky, and there was a buzzing in his ears. Finally, the lengthy speech finally came to an end, and under the guidance of several teachers, the students entered the backstage of the auditorium one by one in order and took the ability test individually. Not long after, the students walked out of the backstage one by one with different expressions. From their faces, you can clearly see their mood and ability awakening. Suddenly, Wang Peng's voice reached Shuyi's ears again. "Brother Yi, why do you think we must be 18 years old before we can conduct the awakening test? Obviously our birthdays are different, which is really weird. From a general point of view, our bodies are fully developed around the age of 18. Shuyi came back to his senses and replied without thinking. According to government data reports, only at this time will the awakened person's abilities become apparent and can be detected. The so-called ability test on the day of awakening is actually a process in which government personnel use unique ability stones to stimulate and activate the abilities in our bodies. So even people who are a few months away from adulthood can still stimulate their body's abilities in advance through this stimulation. As far as I know, some wealthy families will buy special ability stones at high prices when their children are in their teens, so that their children can awaken early. In this way, compared to students who awaken their abilities on the first day of awakening, they will have several more years to familiarize themselves with their abilities and start practicing in advance. Wang Peng on the side was stunned for a while. These contents were something he had never heard of in books or on the internet. "Brother Yi, where did you get these data and information?" Shuyi blinked, and just as he was about to make up a few lies to prevaricate, he heard a voice coming from the loudspeaker in front of him. "Next, Shuyi from class 3 and 4, please go backstage and take the ability test." Under the guidance of several teachers, Shuyi walked into a room at the backstage of the auditorium. In the hut, a man in work clothes was standing meticulously, with a name tag hanging on his chest with his name written on it. This is a staff member from the government who is responsible for conducting proficiency tests for students in major high schools on Awakening Day. Regarding the specific process of the Awakening Day, Teacher Wang has taught the class countless times. Shuyi skillfully took out his ID from his pocket and handed it over. The staff member named Wang Ji immediately took the ID, inserted it into a machine, and verified Shuyi's identity. After confirming that his identity was correct, he returned the ID card to Shuyi and said loudly, "Classmate Shuyi, before starting the awakening test, I need to explain the basic level classification to you. Are you ready?" Shuyi nodded, having already understood this kind of procedural regulations. "Ready." Wang Ji cleared his throat and said in a deep voice, "Since the disaster came 300 years ago, awakened ones have appeared on the Blue Star. After hundreds of years of changes, the efforts of several generations of scientific researchers, and the collection of intelligence data on countless awakened people, we finally classified the abilities of all awakened people into different levels. The abilities of an awakened person range from SSS level to D level. Each ability has different types. And the classification of ability levels also has its own unique standards. The first is D level ability. This is the most basic ability and the highest proportion among awakened people. Approximately 60% of the awakened people have awakened D-level abilities. D-level abilities are mostly auxiliary abilities. Their combat abilities are average, and they only have a few more special abilities than ordinary people. C-level abilities already possess basic combat capabilities, but some abilities will bring some major side effects. B-level abilities can be considered the elite among awakened ones. They have strong combat abilities, but their abilities also have some drawbacks or side effects. And A-level abilities above this can be called geniuses. They can be directly admitted to the Academy of Advanced Awakeners without taking the exam, and their abilities are relatively complete. They are among the best among future awakeners and have a great chance of becoming void hunters. As for S-level abilities, they are 1 in a million, a genius among geniuses. Their abilities have reached perfection, and their abilities are generally very powerful. With a little practice, they can have strong combat effectiveness. Every S-level ability has at least one special effect. And the SS-level ability above this is a peerless monster that is rare to encounter in the entire Dragon Kingdom in 10 years. SS-level abilities have 2 special effects, and each special effect is very powerful. And SSS-level abilities are abilities that only exist in legends. According to data released by the government, there are only 3 awakened people with SSS-level abilities born in the entire Blue Star so far. After Wang Ji introduced the classification of ability levels to Shui with a serious face, his expression showed and he patted him on the shoulder. But, I am not telling you this to make you think that the levels between abilities are insurmountable. Although good abilities are powerful, they also require the awakening's own cultivation. Even D-level abilities, after training, can still kill S-level abilities. So, don't belittle yourself. Even if you have awakened the D-level ability, you must practice hard to contribute to the fight against the Void Beast in the future. And even if you fail to awaken your ability, you can still study in an ordinary university. Even as a researcher, you can make your own contribution. Wang Ji opened and closed his mouth quickly, spitting out these contents like high-speed divine words, but every word fell into Shuyi's ears clearly and unmistakably. It was obviously the effect of some kind of ability. Faced with Wang Ji's words that were like chicken soup, Shui was not moved at all. He just stood there with dead eyes, his face full of tiredness and boredom. That expression was as if he had no interest in the upcoming ability test. Wang Ji was stunned for a moment. He had never seen a student look like this on awakening day. Students in the 3rd year of high school should be at the age of enthusiasm in 2nd grade. The degree of importance and expectation for the awakening day has been cultivated for more than 10 years. But he had never seen a student as calm as Shui. He blinked and didn't think much. He could only continue to follow the process and carry out the awakening ceremony. He solemnly took out a fist-sized light blue stone from his arms. There are lines all over the stone, which seem to form some kind of mysterious pattern, constantly breathing light like a breathing lamp. This is an ability stone made of special materials. You can test your abilities by holding it with both hands and focusing on the stone. Shui took the ability stone and felt a chill in his hand, as if his whole heart had calmed down. He held the ability stone with both hands, and his mind suddenly seemed to be involved, and he kept pouring into the stone. Soon, a pale white light flashed from the ability stone, wrapping his entire body. Oh, Wang Ji showed a smile, and a wisp of green smoke floated out from the ability stone, turning into a line of text in the air. Congratulations, classmate Shui, you have successfully awakened your ability. Although it is a D-level ability, you are qualified to enter the Academy of Awakeners. As he spoke, he pointed at the words on his head. Shui raised his eyes and saw a line of text coming into his eyes. D-level ability, Repair Hand. This is the ability to use energy to repair objects. Although it does not have any direct combat capabilities, it also has a good development direction. Wang Ji nodded and smiled kindly at Shui. You can leave now. The information about your awakening ability will be uploaded directly to your ID card. Looking at his D-level ability, Shui raised his eyebrows and showed a strange expression. At this moment, the ability stone in his hand suddenly flashed with a faint red light. Shui noticed this strangeness instantly. He quickly pulled away his left hand, grabbed the ability stone with only his right hand, and handed it back to Wang Ji. After the ability stone lost the touch of his hands, the red light immediately disappeared and disappeared. Due to the cover of Shuyi's palm, Wang Ji did not notice this strangeness at all. Shuyi thanked Wang Ji, turned around and left the hut. When he pushed the door open, Wang Peng happened to walk out of another room in the background. Seeing Shuyi's figure, he immediately showed an excited expression and quickly came up to him. Brother Yi. What do you mean, do you have the ability to successfully awaken? Let me tell you, I just awakened my C-level ability. This is a rare level in our school. Shuyi blinked, a little surprised that Wang Peng was able to awaken C-level abilities. But as one of the few friends he had in school, he still smiled and replied calmly, I have successfully awakened. It's just a D-level ability. D-level ability. Before Wang Peng could respond, a powerful voice sounded from behind the two of them. What followed was a disdainful sneer, Shuyi, you are really a waste. Shuyi and Wang Peng turned around and saw a burly man, 1.85 meters tall, looking down at the two of them. He was wearing the same school uniform, with an arrogant expression and a ferocious face. Shuyi stood in front of him with a height of 1.78 meters, a full head shorter. He looked the man in front of him up and down, then turned to Wang Peng in confusion. Who is this guy? Your friend. Wang Peng twitched the corners of his mouth and whispered back, have you forgotten? Brother Yi, this is Liao Wei from class 3 next door. You kicked him into a well last week and he crawled for 3 hours before he came out. Oh, it turned out to be that guy. Shuyi looked like he suddenly realized something, and finally recalled the person in front of him. You guy, how many people have you harmed? What happened just last week, and now you have forgotten it? When Liao Wei heard the two people's unabashed whispers, his eyes widened and he roared in his heart. But he didn't show it, instead he snorted coldly and glared at Shuyi angrily, I have successfully awakened just now. Now that I have awakened my B-level abilities, I am one of the best in the entire school. He clenched his fists hard and looked up at the ceiling, with a little excitement in his voice. Let me tell you, if you bow and apologize to me now, I can still let you go. If you don't know what to do. He sneered and looked forward. But Shuyi and Wang Peng, who were originally standing in front of him, had already walked out more than 10 meters and didn't even listen to what he was saying. The two of them seemed to ignore him, not taking him seriously at all. He looked like a clown talking to himself in the air. Stop. Liao Wei was so angry that he quickly caught up with the two and stopped in front of them. This guy is so annoying. Shuyi touched his nose and turned to look at Wang Peng. Do you still remember why I kicked him into the well? Wang Peng immediately replied, he seems to be Tang Xiaowen's suitor. Ever since you rescued Tang Xiaowen with a princess hug in public last week, her fanatical fans have put you at the top of their assassination list. Damn, what a troublesome woman. Hearing this, Shuyi suddenly looked like he had a headache. Last Monday, he was late as always. Because there was a security guard guarding the gate, he deliberately chose a side entrance to enter the school. At that time, the school was holding a flag-raising ceremony, and all the students gathered in the playground. Tang Xiaowen, the school beauty who ranks first in academic performance and is recognized as the most beautiful, happens to be performing a task as a flag raiser on the high platform. The position where Shuyi came in happened to be behind the high platform. However, for some unknown reason, where Tang Xiaowen was standing on the high platform, the guardrail and floor suddenly broke. She suddenly lost her footing and fell off the platform. At this moment, Shuyi, who happened to appear behind, rescued her in a princess-hugging posture. Shuyi, who originally wanted to sneak back to class, was attracted by the whole school. I don't know who spread the rumor that Shuyi deliberately destroyed the floor and was directing and acting on his own. Suddenly, he became a thorn in the side of these fans. So he was lucky enough to be scolded by Teacher Wang, and registered at the top of the assassination list by Tang Xiaowen's almost fanatical fan group. Liao Wei in front of him is one of Tang Xiaowen's suitors. When he was out of school last week, he tried to block Shuyi, but Shuyi coaxed him and kicked him into a pit, and he crawled for 3 hours before he came out. Shuyi, I'm not done with you about what happened last week. Liao Wei glared at Shuyi angrily and said angrily, since you have also become an awakened person, we will deal with it in the same way as an awakened person. At the graduation ceremony the day after tomorrow, I will challenge you. I hope you won't be timid. Faced with Liao Wei's provocation, Shui and Wang Peng did not show any surprise. As if they had seen this kind of thing countless times, they all sighed and walked behind Liao Wei. When he walked next to him, Wang Peng finally couldn't bear it and stopped. If I remember correctly, student Liao Wei, you just transferred to our school 2 months ago. He put his hand on the latter's shoulder and said sincerely, have you ever thought about why there are so many people in Tang Xiaowen's fan group, but you are the only one who dares to come and stop Brother Yi? And why is it that there happens to be an unsealed well in the place where you are blocking Brother Yi? What do you mean? Liao Wei tensed up for no reason and turned his head to look over. Wang Peng showed sympathetic eyes and said meaningfully, there is an organization in our school called the Jia Yi Alliance. There are approximately 200 students joining it, and its sphere of influence covers the 3 surrounding universities. He patted Liao Wei on the shoulder. Hopefully you won't be one of them. After saying this, he trotted to catch up with Shu Yi, and the two of them drifted apart and left the auditorium. The Jia Yi Alliance. Liao Wei stared blankly at the two people leaving, a chill rushing up his back. What kind of organization is that? After completing the proficiency test, students can leave school on their own. You can take a day off at home tomorrow, and the school will start preparing for the graduation ceremony based on the awakening records of all students. The day after tomorrow, the school will hold a graduation ceremony for the students who have become awakened ones. Shu Yi and Wang Peng left the school. After a casual greeting, they said goodbye and left. Their homes are in different directions, so naturally they can't travel together. Shu Yi took the bus with ease and returned home soon. The place where he lives is an old-fashioned community. He has been living here since he traveled to this world 3 years ago. And his parents in this world also disappeared exactly 1 month before he traveled through time. He opened the shoe cabinet, put on his slippers skillfully, and went straight into his bedroom. Close the door, close the window, draw the curtains. After almost sealing off his bedroom, Shu Yi sat back to his desk and gently opened the drawer on the left side. He took out a light blue stone from the drawer and placed it gently on the table. If Wang Ji, who was testing his ability today, was standing here, he would definitely be able to recognize that this light blue stone was the ability stone he used to test the abilities of his students. It's just that this ability stone is several times larger than the one in Wang Ji's hand. Its shape is like a bowling ball, with complex patterns carved all over its body, and it emits a faint blue light. Shu Yi pressed his hands on the ability stone in front of him at the same time and concentrated on it. Soon, the ability stone turned white, which represented the D-level ability he had awakened today, repairing hands. But Shu Yi looked calm and still placed his hands on the ability stone, waiting silently. 3 seconds later, the ability stone, which originally exuded a milky white light, was suddenly dyed with a ray of red, and then quickly turned into crimson, shining with a bright red luster like blood. Suddenly, his entire bedroom was enveloped in the red light shining on the ability stone. As an ability stone made of special materials, it will shine with different lights according to different abilities. And the ability represented by red is clearly SSS-level. The ability stone in Shu Yi's hand did not emit clear smoke, nor did it show the name of the ability. This is because there is a chip buried in the power stone in Wang Ji's hand, which is connected to the government's database. Because of this, when the student's abilities are detected, the chip will automatically upload the student's ability information and emit clear smoke to reveal their ability names. Shu Yi's ability stone was found among his parents' relics. There is no so-called chip, so the ability level can only be determined by the shining light. In the first year after he traveled through time, he searched for this ability stone at home, and relied on his own ability to investigate the function and use of the ability stone. It is the same as what Shu Yi investigated. Although on the awakening day, most students can stimulate the abilities in their bodies through the stimulation of ability stones. But for some wealthy families, as early as when their children are 16 or 17 years old, they can use special methods to stimulate their abilities in advance. When Shu Yi found this ability stone 3 years ago, he made the ability stone shine red and successfully awakened his ability in advance. Logically speaking, he should have awakened an extremely rare SSS-level ability that only 3 people in the world have ever possessed. But after he investigated the government database and collected countless information, he was still unable to find the name and function of his ability. and he seems to be unable to perceive the effects of this SSS-level ability on his own due to his lack of age. He consulted a lot of information and finally came to a vague conclusion: he might be the awakener of twin abilities. This is a kind of awakened person with a very low probability of being born. On the day of awakening, they will awaken two abilities, and most of the two abilities are complementary to each other. The level of abilities may also be completely different, and they are very rare awakened ones. After today's awakening day, when Shui successfully awakened the D-level ability Repair Hand, he was finally able to confirm that he was a twin. However, he did not show his SSS-level ability in front of Wang Ji. Is that really the case? Shu also took his hand off the ability stone and put it back into the drawer. He pondered for a moment and then closed his eyes. As an awakened person, you can feel the effects of your own abilities by connecting with your own spiritual power. After the awakening day, energy will be born in the body of the awakened person. The existence of energy is also the source of driving ability. Not long after, amid a mysterious sensation, the effects of two abilities gradually emerged in Shuyi's mind. After seeing the effect of his ability, he immediately opened his eyes with a strange expression. No wonder I haven't been able to perceive the effects of that SSS-level ability before. He muttered to himself. The expression on his face was extremely painful. The D-level ability Repair Hand, which Shuyi awakened on the day of awakening, is a very simple ability. Its effect is very simple, that is, it can repair damaged inanimate objects through energy. However, depending on the material of the repaired object, the energy and time consumed will vary greatly. He took out a pencil from the desk and broke it hard. The pencil suddenly broke in half. Then, he held half of the pencil and said to himself, if I remember correctly, the way energy works is. In an instant, a faint white light emerged from his palm. Immediately afterwards, the pencil wrapped in this ray of white light unexpectedly had a milky white thread protruding from the broken part, connecting it to the other broken half. Then, the two pencil sections were quickly connected together and restored to their original shape. Shu also raised the pencil and inspected it carefully. The pencil is in perfect condition with no signs of breakage. He broke the pencil again. This time, he opened the window and threw the broken other half out. After the half of the pencil disappeared into the darkness, he raised the half of the pencil in his hand and used his Repair Hand again. This time, white light once again enveloped the pencil. But where it broke, it seemed as if it had grown out of thin air, and half of the pencil quickly grew out. The energy consumption has increased. When there are no broken parts around, the body will be reshaped using energy. Shu also put the pencil back on the corner of the table and did not continue to do more detailed research. What he is more concerned about now is the other SSS-level ability in his body. This is an SSS-level capability that has never appeared in the government's database and has no name. After sensing its effect, Shuyi chose to name it himself. SSS-level ability Natural Selection. As SSS-level abilities, most of them have 3 special effects. Of course he is no exception. As for the 3 special effects of natural selection, he can also roughly perceive them. Special Effect 1. Evolution. You can permanently upgrade your abilities by consuming special materials. Special Effect 2. Disappearance can randomly increase the level of one of your own abilities within a certain period of time, and restore it to its original state after using it once. Special Effect 3. Wizards. After completing specific conditions, new abilities can be learned randomly, but only D-level abilities can be learned. These 3 special effects were concepts that appeared in Shuzai's mind after he perceived them. Although many conditions are a bit vague, this is undoubtedly a genuine SSS-level ability. And he finally understood why he could not feel the effect of this SSS-level ability until the day of awakening, after he awakened his Repair Hand. Because this ability is almost tailor-made for twin abilities. But it can only comprehend D-level abilities, and the effects can only be used in conjunction with D-level abilities, which also makes Shuyi very painful. Although its effects and abilities are very growth-prone. But looking at it now, it's not even as powerful as some S-level abilities. Because it has no active effect at all and can only exist based on his own D-level ability. But most of the D-level abilities have no direct combat ability. Therefore, even if the ability level is improved, it is difficult to guarantee its effectiveness in combat. Shu did not think about it further. Instead, he took a deep breath, silently activated the energy in his body, and began to use his abilities to select by nature. The specific effect of this ability still needs to be tested in practice before we can draw a conclusion. He has the crudest method for how energy works. With this method, he could not successfully perceive the conditions of special effects 1 and 3. Therefore, at this time, he could only activate the second special effect of natural selection disappearance. Purpose: repair hands. A ray of light red light flashed across Shuyi's palm. At the same time, a concept emerged in his mind. Success in becoming immortal. D-level ability repair hand. The level has been randomly upgraded to SSS level, and it will return to its original state after one use. A strange feeling suddenly surged through Shuyi's body. In his perception, repair hand seemed to have undergone earth-shaking changes. Although it is still not possible to perceive in great detail what effect the repair hand has at this moment. But he vaguely noticed that this ability could no longer be called a repair hand. It seems that even if he uses his repair hand on an ordinary pencil, he can make it undergo some amazing changes. With the improvement of realm, different abilities can also achieve more powerful effects. The specific manifestations are reduced energy consumption and enhanced ability effects. If this is the case, repairmen who are forcibly upgraded to SSS level abilities may also be able to achieve similar improvements and effects. Shuyi's expression kept flickering, and his heart moved slightly. Maybe now his repairing hand even has the ability to turn ordinary objects into treasures. He stood up, eager to test it out. He pushed open the door and went directly to the small room in his home where clutter was accumulated. Above this room, there is a small hollow attic. He climbed up the ladder, hunched over and groped for a while, and finally found an ancient box among the dust. This is an old thing left by his parents in this world. His parents are two archaeologists. 3 years ago, during the exploration of a large-scale ruins, the two came into contact with some kind of mechanism and then disappeared completely. When Shuyi traveled to this world 3 years ago, his parents had been missing for several months. But they left a lot of things at home. Shuyi dug out the bowling ball-sized ability stone from the box. This box contains many tools used in archaeology. Unfortunately, apart from these tools and ability stones, there was only an ancient pot that was mostly broken. This ancient pot seems to be some kind of ancient object. It is about the size of a palm. It looks like it is made of bronze. It has many lines on it, but it seems to have been hit by something heavy. It is full of cracks and extremely damaged. When Shuyi found this ancient pot 3 years ago, he felt that it was nothing ordinary, so he kept it carefully placed in this box. He solemnly picked up the ancient pot and returned to the bedroom. On the back of this ancient pot, there is a label attached to it. Obviously, this was posted by his parents to make it easier to remember. The 3 small characters, Julie Pot, seem to be the name of this ancient pot. What will happen if I use my SSS level repairing hand on this kind of ancient object? Shuyi gently touched the Julie Pot, and this thought flashed through his mind. Disappearance is naturally not a special effect that can be used casually. He could feel that after upgrading his repair hand to the SSS level, he would not be able to use Tuifan again, at least for a certain period of time. Therefore, this repair hand can only be used once, and the subject of the experiment is very important. This is also the reason why he deliberately dug out the Julie Pot. This antique is almost the most valuable item in his home. No matter how bad it is, if we can restore this Julie Pot to its original state, we can probably sell it for a lot of dragon coins. Shuyi smiled slightly, no longer hesitating, and touched the broken body of the Julie Pot with his right hand, urging the repair hand. A blazing red light instantly burst out from his palm. The red light immediately enveloped the Julie Pot, and then, extremely terrifying energy fluctuations emerged from the damaged Julie Pot. This wave of fluctuation flashed by, and then it was like being swallowed by a black hole, and was sucked directly into the mouth of the pot. Afterwards, the Julie Pot was quickly repaired under the shining light. The originally damaged body of the pot quickly seemed to have gone back in time, and the damaged parts were constantly being restored. The body of the pot made of bronze was quickly replenished, and even a stopper made of bronze appeared at the mouth of the pot, blocking the opening. The repair process only took 30 seconds. After a while, the red light dissipated directly. The Julie pot is placed quietly on the table like a newly unearthed ancient bronze vessel. Just from the appearance, there is nothing special about it. After using it once, the red light in Shuyi's palm quickly receded and returned to its original D-level ability. Thump! His body seemed to have collapsed, and he slipped directly from the chair and sat on the ground. Shuyi's eyes showed a little shock. At this moment, he just felt like his whole body was out of strength and he couldn't raise any strength. Not only that, his brain also became dizzy, and he felt as if he hadn't eaten for more than 10 days. His whole body was weak and extremely weak. Just like that, not only did it drain all my energy, but it also made me so weak. He reluctantly raised his hand, supported the table, and sat back on the chair unsteadily. The shock in his eyes never faded. What on earth did I repair? Could it be that this is the Jubao mentioned in government documents? Jincheng, Old City. A girl in a JK skirt was chewing bubblegum and walking calmly on the dark street with her long legs. It was already night, and the constantly flashing street lights lengthened her figure, and the surroundings were extremely silent. Soon, she came to the end of the alley. There was a high wall in front of her, and she seemed to have reached a dead end. It should be right here. The breeze blew by, blowing her long hair up, revealing her extremely delicate face. She muttered as if talking to herself, and casually spit out the bubble gum in her mouth. The moment the bubble gum flew out, she lightly snapped her fingers. In an instant, the bubble gum exploded gently in the air like a bomb and turned into nothingness. Then, she gently opened her clothes, put her hand directly into her chest, and took out a mobile phone. If I had known that I couldn't bring a bag with me when I was on a mission, I wouldn't have come here wearing these clothes. It doesn't even have a pocket, it's really troublesome. She muttered something dissatisfied, then turned on her phone, checked the map, and then stuffed it back into her chest. After doing all this, she stretched out and gently pressed the headset that was already in her ear. Report to Senior, I'm already in place. Copy that, the others have been waiting for you for a long time, please hurry up. I know, the girl trailed off, squatted down slightly, and actually pulled out a yellow talisman from the edge of her knee-high socks. She slapped the yellow talisman on the wall in front of her, then raised her thumb, with some hesitation in her eyes. This hesitation did not last long, so she endured the pain and bit her fingertip lightly. A drop of blood overflowed from the wound, and she pressed her thumb on the yellow talisman with a grimace. In an instant, an inexplicable aura soared into the sky from the yellow talisman and disappeared into the sky. After doing all this, she looked up at the night sky and murmured to herself, Jubao, the world in the mirror. Is this thing really as magical as the senior said? The moment the girl put the yellow talisman on it, from the 4 directions of the old city, 4 inexplicable forces rose up at the same time and surged into the sky. These 4 nameless forces gathered in the air, connected with each other, and finally turned into a square and transparent barrier, covering the area covered by it. The world in the mirror has unfolded. A serious voice came from the girl's headset. At the same time, several figures quickly shuttled around the area. The void beast has been confirmed to be in this area. Find it quickly and complete this mission. Once you find out, notify me immediately, and never fight alone. With your strength, you are no match for this void beast. So, what is the use of this pot? Next to the desk, Shui was playing with the restored Julie pot, his face full of confusion. After a short period of rest, he regained some strength and was finally able to move normally. He also took advantage of this time to examine the Julie pot in his hand, hoping to test out what specific effects it had. But no matter how he fiddled with it, even opening the spout and pouring energy into the pot, there was no reaction at all. Could it be that this is just an ordinary ancient bronze? He felt depressed for a while, then he covered the spout again, held the palm-sized Julie pot in his hand, and scratched his head. You know, he spent a precious opportunity to use his SSS-level repairman to repair the Julie pot. Forget it, at least this is a complete bronze vessel. If you are short of money in the future, you should still be able to sell it for a lot of money. With a heavy sigh, Shui finally recognized the reality. After hesitating for a moment, he put the Julie pot into his pocket and stood up. The previous use of the repair hand had almost overdrawn his entire body. At this moment, his whole body felt weak, and a sense of hunger kept rising, making him very uncomfortable. Dragging his steps to the kitchen, Shui couldn't help but sigh while looking at the empty refrigerator. At this critical moment, he had finished all the food at home. Looks like I can only go to the convenience store. Shui reluctantly put on his shoes and pushed out the door. Although the community where he is located is the old part of Jincheng, it is relatively remote. But outside the community, there is still a 24-hour convenience store. It was already past 10 o'clock in the evening, but Shui didn't want to endure the strong hunger and fall asleep. Roar. The deafening roar seemed to tear the entire night sky apart. Fang Xin's face turned pale, his steps staggered, and he took several steps back. She didn't expect that she would encounter a virtual beast head-on just after setting up the mirror world. Void Beast, Shadow Beast. She murmured the name of the virtual beast in front of her, her expression becoming more solemn. The monster in front of her was about 2 meters tall, with 4 feet on the ground, and its fangs reflected a dark white light under the moonlight. Its whole body was shrouded in black energy, and large scales of scales could be vaguely seen all over its body, and its red eyes flashed with blazing murderous intent. Fang Xin suppressed the slight panic in her heart and quickly touched the Bluetooth headset in her ear with her right hand. "Senior, I'm here." Whoosh! Fang Xin's pupils shrank and he quickly turned sideways. A black scale actually cut through the night sky and brushed past her cheek. The next moment, a red blood mark appeared on her fair and delicate face. Although the wound was not deep, blood also overflowed from the wound. The headphones that were originally in her ears instantly broke into 2 pieces and fell from her ears to the ground. Fang Xin looked straight ahead, with a look of surprise in his eyes, and gently touched his face to wipe away the wisp of blood. Then, she looked down at her bloody thumb, her eyes froze slightly. But an almost terrifying momentum surged from her body. "You actually hurt my face." She murmured and repeated these words, her eyes flickering as she raised her head and looked at the virtual beast not far away. The crimson energy instantly enveloped her whole body. "It seems that you already have a way to die. Finally I have the strength." In the convenience store, Shui took a big bite of bread with an extremely happy expression on his face. The feeling of extreme hunger slowly receded from his body. The discomfort of energy depletion before was quickly leaving his body at this moment. "Brother Yi, haven't you eaten all day?" The cashier boy in front of the convenience store counter looked at Shui, who was devouring food with a strange expression on his face, and couldn't help but speak. "He has been working here for 2 years. 2 years ago, due to a theft in the store, he was regarded as a suspect by the store manager and was about to be sent to the police station. Shu also happened to be shopping here at that time, so he helped him out and found the real prisoner. Taking this opportunity, Zhou Jiyu had the opportunity to continue working here, and the two became familiar with each other. And because of this incident, although he is older than Shu Yi, he still respectfully calls him Brother Yi. But he had never seen Shu Yi look so hungry. Taking a sip of mineral water, Shu Yi swallowed the food in his mouth and replied without raising his head, "Isn't it a common thing for a young man to replenish his energy for the nightlife?" "Oh, Brother Yi, have you found a girlfriend?" Upon hearing this, Zhou Jiyu suddenly showed a lewd smile and winked at Shu Yi. "Would you like a box of combat equipment? I'll give you a 20% discount in my own name." "Girlfriend, vulgar." Shu Yi drank the last drop of water, threw the garbage in his hand into the trash can, and snorted disdainfully, "My comrade only has this golden right hand." Zhou Jiyu rolled his eyes and stood aside and complained, "Brother Nei, are you being squeezed dry by your comrades? You are still a high school student now, so it's better to be more restrained. Stop talking nonsense, I'm going home." Shu Yi was too lazy to argue with him, shrugged his shoulders and walked out of the convenience store, preparing to go home and continue to study his abilities. "Brother Yi, be careful on the road." Zhou Jiyu smiled and waved his hand, "I heard that there have been several accidental disappearances in the old city recently, so you should be careful." Accidentally disappeared. Shu Yi walked out of the store and muttered softly. He happened to see this news in the past 2 days. In the past 2 or 3 days, there have been several disappearances, all occurring in the old city. The police have been busy dealing with this matter recently. How could it be such a coincidence that it happened to me? He muttered something to himself, put his hands in his pockets, and walked straight towards home. A gust of night wind whistled, causing the dim and worn-out lights to sway slightly. In this silent night sky, Shuyi's ears suddenly heard a muffled sound. Boom! He stopped suddenly and looked to the side in surprise. The muffled sound just now gave him the feeling as if it came from another world, extremely distant, yet extremely real. Is it an illusion? He squinted his eyes and listened quietly, but there was only the sound of the night wind in his ears. But just when Shuyi thought it was an illusion and was about to move on, another muffled sound suddenly came from his ears. Boom! This time, Shu was able to confirm that he was not hallucinating. Although the muffled sound was far away, it seemed to be real. He definitely did not hear it wrongly. He closed his eyes and stood there listening carefully. A moment later, the same muffled sound suddenly came. Is it here? Shuyi quickly opened his eyes, took 2 hurried steps forward, and looked at the alley on the left. This is a dead-end alley with walls on both sides, pitch black and empty. But those muffled sounds seemed to come from this alley. He stood at the entrance of the alley, his eyes flickering, showing a tangled look. From a personal perspective, Shu is also a person who is very afraid of trouble. But he had extremely strong curiosity, which made him very concerned about this strange sound. He stood at the entrance of the alley, hesitating for a long time, but the muffled sound in his ears sounded again. This time the sound became extremely loud, and it seemed that a girl was faintly shouting. Shuyi squinted his eyes and looked ahead, suddenly took a step back, and said to himself, there is always an ominous premonition. It's better to go back. His instinct told him that there seemed to be big trouble ahead. Rather than being curious, he ultimately chose to avoid possible trouble. Turning around quickly, Shuyi quickly wanted to leave. But he had just walked 2 steps away when a roar sounded from behind him. Hey! There was a sound like a mirror being broken, and Shuyi suddenly turned around, only to see that at the entrance of the alley, the original air was shattered like a mirror. In that gap, there seems to be a world that is exactly the same as the environment around him. At the same time, the roar he heard before was finally no longer distant at this moment, and came out from the broken gap extremely clearly. The deafening roar of beasts and the violent impact came out loudly, making people dizzy, tinnitus, and blood surge. Immediately afterwards, a cry of surprise sounded from the gap. The world in the mirror is broken. Why is it different from what the senior said? This is too fragile. Huh, is there someone next to me? Shuyi quickly took 2 steps back, looking at the gap with slightly shocked eyes, and his brain started spinning rapidly. But then, a pair of surprised beautiful eyes followed the gap and looked at Shuyi in the air. Are you also an awakened person? When Fang Xin saw Shuyi, his expression changed slightly and he spoke loudly. Can you do me a favor? However, as soon as she said the words, Shuyi turned around like a gust of wind and started running very fast. Fang Xin was left standing in the gap stunned, looking ahead in disbelief. He ran away. Fang Xin's shock didn't last long before his expression changed and he quickly jumped into the air. The claws of the shadow beast struck horizontally and hit the ground hard, making a roar. Fang Xin dodged the blow, quickly stabilized his body in the air, and threw a stone downwards with his right hand. The stone fell rapidly, impacting the shadow beast's huge body. Immediately afterwards, Fang Xin lightly snapped his fingers, and the stone exploded directly on the shadow beast's body, creating a cloud of smoke and dust. At the same time, the gap beside her was quickly repaired by an unknown force. Damn that guy, I originally wanted him to call the senior for me. Fang Xin murmured dissatisfiedly, looked down with a solemn face, and became nervous. She simply couldn't handle this shadow beast with her own strength. In the dust and smoke, the shadow beast's huge body shot straight into the sky like a cannonball, dispersing the smoke and dust. However, its attention was no longer on Fang Xin. Instead, its red eyes flashed and looked in the direction Shuyi escaped. Shuyi quickly shuttled through the streets with a strange look on his face. What was that monster just now? Was it the virtual beast recorded in the database? The nameplate on that girl's chest, if I remember correctly, is from Longxia Academy. According to Wang Peng, this is the awakened person from Longxia Academy who came to Jincheng. It seems that they came to Jincheng not to recruit awakened people, but to hunt the void beasts. In his mind, countless clues came together quickly, and he reached the conclusion in just a few seconds. Because of this, the moment he saw the girl, he made a decision: run. In any case, he is just a newly awakened person with almost no fighting ability. Although the girl from Longxia Academy seemed to want him to help. But Shu would never let himself be in danger alone, so he chose to leave. It seems like this virtual beast has been wandering around the old city for a long time. Could it be that it was responsible for the disappearances of the past 2 days? Shui ran towards home while thinking rapidly in his mind. But at this moment, just half a meter away from him, the air shattered again. Shui turned his head in confusion, but all he saw was a huge black claw, suddenly smashing the air, and slapping ferociously in his direction. Hey, isn't it? Even if the brain has already conveyed the instruction to dodge in an instant. But Shuyi's body had no time to react. Seeing that the terrifying giant claw was about to hit his body, a red light rushed over at a faster speed and suddenly blocked Shuyi. Boom! A roar came from in front of Shuyi, and the strong wind that followed made him stagger and almost fall. He suddenly stopped and saw Fang Xin standing between him and the shadow beast. Her skirt and hair were fluttering in the wind, her arms were wrapped with a little red light, but her face was slightly pale. If it affects civilians, credits will be deducted, she murmured, supporting the shadow beast's huge claws with all her strength, her eyes full of obsession. But at this moment, the shadow beast roared again. A black scale armor actually shot out of the air, turned into a beam of black light, and rushed towards Shuyi. Hey, be careful. Fang Xin's face changed drastically and she shouted urgently, but the giant claw in front of her was a little heavier, making it impossible for her to escape and help. Facing the rapidly rushing black light, Shuyi's pores stood up all over his body, the blood all over his body seemed to be boiling, and his adrenaline surged like crazy. The sense of crisis of life and death surged into his heart, but he became extremely calm in an instant. The next moment, he rushed forward, crashed into the gap, and rolled into it. Click click. The gap that was broken like a mirror began to be repaired at this moment. The gap became smaller and smaller, and the beam of black light that shuttled rapidly failed to catch up with Shuyi before the gap was repaired, and disappeared directly outside the gap. Shuyi rolled over and sat up from the ground, looked at the huge virtual beast in front of him, and murmured, "It always feels like I have entered a more dangerous place." Senior, Fang Xin's voice is cut off. 2 figures shuttled on the rooftops of the old city. Suddenly, a young man rushed from the side and joined the two. I have noticed it. The leader was wearing a blue robe, his hair was meticulous, and his face was solemn. Not only that, the energy in Fang Xin's mirror world leaked out twice, as if it was broken. Energy leaked. The senior frowned and said thoughtfully, "Something's wrong. Logically speaking, the world in the mirror is indestructible and almost impossible to be destroyed. Unless there is external force to find the mirror world from the outside world and smash it." When he said this, his expression suddenly changed, light flashed under his feet, and his speed increased a bit. "No, we have to get there as soon as possible. Fang Xin's life is in danger." Boom. On the street, Fang Xin shouted loudly, and a blazing red light erupted from his body, finally knocking back the shadow beast. She panted slightly and turned to look at Shuyi, who was rolling up from the ground, with a worried look on her face. "What did you come in for? Didn't you ask me to help? I am kind-hearted and willing to help others." Shuyi looked upright, but felt uneasy in his heart. He looked around, and the location here was exactly the same as the previous street. The surrounding walls and buildings are also lifelike, but there is no breath of life. "Then you ran away in the first place." Fang Xin was furious and glared away. "I love sports, don't I?" Shuyi muttered and looked ahead. The shadow beast at this moment had its fangs exposed and its scarlet eyes stared at him closely, with a hint of excitement. It kept rubbing its palms, energy surged from its body, and it was already ready to swoop in. At this moment, 2 stones suddenly flew from the side and were thrown directly in front of the shadow beast. With the snap of fingers, the 2 stones exploded like bombs, sending up smoke and dust all over the sky and making a roar. Before Shuyi could react, a figure directly grabbed him and ran forward quickly. Turning to look at the pale Fang Xin beside him, Shuyi quickly adjusted his body shape, ran forward with her, and asked, "So, what do you want me to do for you?" Without saying a word, Fang Xin directly put his hand into his chest, took out a mobile phone, and said quickly, "Make the first call and ask the seniors to come and rescue us. The lock screen password is 1019. As soon as she finished speaking, she stepped on the ground hard and pulled Shui to jump 3 or 4 meters high from the street, landing directly on the wall of the alley next to her. They had just jumped up when the shadow beast's huge claw suddenly slammed down on the ground where they were previously, creating a pit mark on the ground. If they hadn't escaped in time just now, I'm afraid they would have been beaten to pulp by now. Fang Xin's face became paler. In order to protect Shui, she had to resist the shadow beast's attack, causing the energy in her body to almost bottom out. But the shadow beast was only slightly injured, not harmful at all. If the fight continued like this, she wouldn't be able to hold on until the seniors and others came over. "No, there's no signal," Shui shouted, waving his phone. "Will this guy's energy block the signal?" Fang Xin's expression became more solemn, and he threw 3 stones behind him without looking back while running quickly. The stone exploded in the air, temporarily blocking the shadow beast's pursuit. But her breath became heavier and heavier, and the intense consumption of energy made her unable to hold on. If she was alone, she would still be able to fight to the death, at least she wouldn't be as embarrassed as she is now. But just now the world in the mirror was shattered, and civilians were unintentionally involved. Whether it's for school motto or credits, she has an obligation to protect civilians. Although her ability Christmas gift cannot cause fatal damage to the shadow beast, but it can still be done to temporarily hinder its progress. As long as she persists until the seniors and the others arrive, she can escape successfully. 8 meters per second, abdomen. Suddenly there was a whisper in my ears. Angxin turned around and saw Shui running quickly forward while muttering to himself. "What are you muttering about?" Fang Xin couldn't help but ask quickly. "This guy's running speed and weaknesses," Shui replied casually, his eyes unexpectedly calm, like a cold machine. Fang Xin was stunned for a second. She didn't expect that the guy next to her who looked like a high school student could analyze so calmly at this moment. "Wait, you just said that this guy's weak point is in his abdomen." She quickly reacted and looked at Shui with wide eyes. "How did you know?" She had been fighting with the shadow beast for so long, but she didn't realize where the opponent's weakness was. But not long after Shui was dragged into the mirror world, he discovered this. "Didn't you notice?" Shui quickly replied. "If I'm not mistaken, the scales on this guy's body are evenly distributed. The explosion caused by your ability cannot break through its defense. You threw stones 3 times in total. In the first 2 attacks, it didn't make any defensive moves at all and just resisted. But in the 3rd attack just now, you threw a total of 3 stones. Just when the rocks were touching its body and about to explode, it made a curling up movement. The fact that it made this move means, explain that my attack will hurt it and attack its weakness." Fang Xin's eyes lit up and he immediately followed Shuyi's words. The shadow beast curls up its body, and the part it wants to defend happens to be its waist and abdomen. Fang Xin looked in amazement and looked at Shuyi in shock. He didn't expect that the young man next to him had such keen observation skills. She quickly cheered up, jumped off the wall with Shuyi, and grabbed a few stones from the ground. "I advise you not to attack directly." Shuyi's voice suddenly came from beside him, still so calm. "This guy's intelligence is not low. If an attack fails, it will definitely respond in advance. At that time, if you want to attack its weakness, it will be as difficult as climbing to the sky. Then what do you want to do?" Fang Xin frowned and whispered. "Use this." Shuyi spread out his right hand, and in the palm of his hand was a half-cut pebble. Roar! A deafening roar came from above the 2 of them. The shadow beast finally caught up, stepped hard with all 4 legs, and broke a wall, breaking the wind. In just a few seconds, it rushed to a distance of less than 10 meters. At the same time, Shuyi quickly read out the plan and finally conveyed it to Fang Xin. "Are you sure this is okay?" Fang Xin widened his eyes and looked at Shuyi in disbelief. "We don't have many choices." Shuyi looked ahead intently, maintaining his composure even in this extremely fast life and death situation. "Okay." Fang Xin gritted his teeth, suddenly stepped on the ground with his right foot, and threw half of the pebbles in his hand towards the shadow beast with all his strength, like a baseball player throwing a ball. "I will believe you just once." The pebbles cut through the night sky, like arrows from the string, heading straight towards the shadow beast's belly. Facing this sudden attack, the shadow beast's body surged with black light. As if it had been warned, it curled up directly, turned into a ball, and rolled forward. The pebbles hit its extremely thick scales plainly, and then bounced directly to the ground. The shadow beast rolled up and landed on all fours, with a look of confusion on its hideous and terrifying face. It actually stopped where it was, looking at the two people in front of it with its red eyes, and even tilted its head slightly as if it was being cute. "Hey, you liar!" Fang Xin grabbed Shuyi's shoulders and shook them crazily. "This is of no use at all. And this guy looks at us like we're idiots. I'm despised by a void beast." She regretted a little that she had listened to Shuyi's words. Just now Shuyi asked her not to use her abilities and threw the pebbles out. But she didn't react until she did it. What harm can be done to the virtual beast with only half a pebble? Roar! A deafening roar came from the shadow beast's mouth. It stepped on the ground again, flew up, and rushed towards the two of them. A distance of less than 10 meters is a matter of flying for it. Fang Xin's expression changed drastically. He quickly grabbed Shuyi, then turned around and tried to dodge. But Shuyi's body didn't move at all. He was looking straight ahead and whispering a series of numbers quickly. 7 meters, 6 meters, 5 meters. That's enough. His eyes flashed, and he suddenly stretched out his right hand, pointing straight ahead. Only then did Fang Xin notice. Shuyi actually held half a pebble in his palm. Judging from the fracture, it seemed to be the same pebble she threw. The shadow beast's huge body had now turned into a shadow, covering the two people's bodies. Fang Xin could even see the white light reflected from the ferocious fangs. At this distance, even if she wanted to escape now, it seemed that it was already too late. But Shuyi, who was held tightly by her, looked so calm, without any emotional fluctuations at all. "You only have one chance, don't miss it." Suddenly at this moment, Shuyi shouted, and a white light emerged from between his right palm. Ability Repair Hand activate. In an instant, half of the pebbles in his palm shone with a white light. A milky white energy thread quickly flew out from its fracture. The next moment, the half of the pebbles thrown by Fang Xin flew through the air as if they were being pulled by silk threads. Its speed was so fast that it covered a distance of several meters in almost half a second, and quickly shuttled right below the shadow beast flying up. Fang Xin's eyes flashed and he reacted very quickly. At the moment when half of the pebbles flew below the shadow beast, she rubbed her fingers together and snapped her fingers expertly. A-level ability, Christmas gift. Boom! The turbulent air waves directly blew Shuyi and Fang Xin, and they couldn't help but take a few steps back. The fire caused by the explosion turned into a smoke screen, covering the front. But half a second later, the sound of a body landing heavily came from the front. The shadow beast's body fell to the ground, and the strong wind blew away the smoke and dust. His abdomen seemed to have been blasted through, with countless blood flowing out. Jet black energy flowed continuously on its body, but it only struggled twice before losing its breath of life and lying motionless on the ground. A light blue light rushed out of the shadow beast's mind invisibly and quickly headed in the direction of Shuyi. Shuyi's face changed slightly, and he clearly felt that this light penetrated into the jewelry pot in his arms. The strong wind blew Fang Xin's hair and skirt back, and Shuyi's calm face suddenly became a little weird. It succeeded. Fang Xin's eyes widened and he looked ahead in disbelief. Although they were both in the rock realm, the shadow beast, whose combat power was much stronger than hers, was actually killed by her. "Hey, did you see it?" She suddenly turned her head and looked at Shuyi behind her, her voice full of excitement and joy of surviving the disaster. "I saw it, it's blue and white striped," Shuyi said subconsciously, but suddenly felt a killing intent rising. The next moment, he was choked by Fang Xin on the spot, waving his hands like a drowning man. "I'm going to die, I'm going to die." After a while, Fang Xin finally let go of Shuyi and stood there with a blush on his face and a sense of unreality in his eyes. "You know, they have been tracking this shadow beast for more than a week. He's a guy that even the seniors can't easily subdue. But with Shuyi's help, she managed to kill him." Cough cough cough. Shuyi coughed quickly and muttered in a low voice, "It's not like I want to take the initiative to see it. If you say anything again, believe it or not, your head will explode." Fang Xin's face turned redder. He suddenly stamped his foot and looked at Shui threateningly. She turned around sharply, looked at the corpse of the shadow beast on the ground, and took a deep breath. Did I really kill this shadow beast? Everything has its weaknesses. As long as you attack the weaknesses, it is normal for the weak to defeat the strong. Shuyi's voice suddenly came from the side. He looked down at the shadow beast, his eyes flashing. In my mind, a memory from 3 years ago suddenly flashed past. Weakness. Fang Xin muttered and repeated this sentence, but suddenly thought in her mind that she seemed to have heard these words many times when she was in school. She suddenly woke up. Compared to himself, Shuyi's astonishing insight and judgment, and even the ability he displayed in the end, are the most critical part in killing the shadow beast. He even included the effects of his own abilities in his calculations. Who are you? Fang Xin's expression suddenly became serious. He stared at Shui closely and asked. I'm just an ordinary high school student passing by, Shui said sincerely. If possible, he didn't want to be involved in this inexplicable incident. But for some reason, the moment the shadow beast saw him, it seemed to treat him as prey and pursued him relentlessly. Hearing Shuyi's answer, Fang Xin's chest felt tight and the corners of his mouth suddenly twitched. Can an ordinary high school student have this kind of judgment and analysis ability? She frowned and murmured to herself, it's really strange. According to the senior, the world and the mirror shouldn't be torn apart so easily. How did this guy break the mirror world and affect reality? If the mirror world hadn't been shattered, Shui would never have been involved in this battle. Logically speaking, this kind of accidental involvement of civilians is a huge dereliction of duty. Boom! The sound of heavy footsteps on the ground broke the silence. Immediately afterwards, the expressions of Fang Xin and Shuyi all changed, and they suddenly raised their heads. No way! Shuyi frowned and looked ahead in disbelief. Not far away, a shadow beast that was 2 times larger than the shadow beast just now was looking at the two of them ferociously. The aura on its body was extremely penetrating, and it burst out with blazing murderous intent. I finally know why the mirror world was shattered. Fang Xin's face turned pale, and he finally knew the answer to the question. The world and the mirror is the most frequently used among the Ju treasures. After attaching the mirror symbols in rectangular shapes around the city, they can be connected to each other to create a mirror world. In the mirror world, you can quickly screen based on energy and transfer virtual beasts to the mirror world. Logically speaking, the defensive power of the mirror world is extremely strong, and ordinary battles cannot destroy it, let alone affect the real world. But if there is a virtual beast outside the mirror world and attacks the mirror world, it can destroy the barrier to a certain extent and shatter the mirror world. Fang Xin looked at the shadow beast in front of him in disbelief, and the conclusion was ready to come out. The reason why the mirror world was broken before was because this guy launched an attack on the mirror world from the outside. This time there is not only one virtual beast, but 2. This is very different from the intelligence they received before performing the mission. If 2 shadow beasts appear at the same time, even if they join forces, it will probably be a hard battle. However, at this moment, after she fought hard to kill a shadow beast, her energy had almost bottomed out. Facing the second shadow beast that appeared, she had no power to fight back. Boom! 2 jet black scales rushed out quickly, piercing the air in the direction of Shuyi and Fang Xin. Shuyi's expression changed continuously. This sudden situation caught him off guard and he had no time to react. But at this moment, Fang Xin suddenly pushed him behind him, stretched out his right arm forcefully, and the energy appeared. Boom! With 2 muffled sounds, Fang Xin's body was blown away and hit the wall behind him heavily. She coughed out a large mouthful of blood, and her body slid down. Looking at Shuyi's weakness, she said, "Run away." Then, she rolled her eyes and passed out on the spot. Roar! A deafening beast roar sounded, and after shooting out 2 scales, the shadow beast suddenly stepped on the ground and rushed quickly in the direction of Shuyi. It seems that from the beginning, its purpose was only Shuyi. Shu also tried his best to get his body to react. But the speed of this shadow beast is far beyond what the previous one can match. In just one breath, it crossed a distance of more than 10 meters and swooped in front of Shuyi. At this distance, Shuyi could even clearly see every fang of this shadow beast. But his body had no time to make evasive movements, and he could only watch Senbai's fangs keep falling. at the moment when the shadow beast's attack was less than 1 meter away from Shui. In his ears, the sound of running quickly came suddenly. A figure shuttled past Shui at a speed faster than the shadow beast. The blue robe was dancing in the wind, and Shui could only see the figure, rushing forward quickly, and actually got directly under the shadow beast. He waved his right hand, and a dagger appeared out of thin air in his originally empty palm. It was a young man with a resolute face. He looked to be only in his mid-20s, but his expression was extremely determined and without any hesitation. He swung the dagger and slashed towards the shadow beast's abdomen. Roar! Faced with the sudden attack, the shadow beast responded quickly. It began to curl up, trying to cover its abdomen under its scales to resist the attack. But at this moment, Shui heard a young man's voice, "Ding." The crouching movement of the virtual beast suddenly froze as if it had been electrocuted. And at this moment, the young man in blue robe had already inserted the dagger deeply into the shadow beast's abdomen and pulled quickly. Along with the shrill roar of beasts, blood rain poured down from the sky. The huge body of the shadow beast was directly disemboweled and crashed to the ground. There was deep unwillingness in its eyes, and it actually shot out 2 black scales from its body, shooting towards the young man in blue robe. The young man in blue robe is in a state of free fall at the moment. But facing these 2 black lights, he looked calm and didn't even make any defensive moves. In Shuyi's sight, a circular shield made of metal appeared out of thin air in front of the young man, blocking the 2 black lights. Boom! The huge body of the virtual beast suddenly fell, and the young man in blue robe landed with it. Another light blue light quickly penetrated into the Julie pot, but it seemed that only Shuyi could see it, and no one else noticed it at all. Shuyi's eyes shone with a little light, and he looked forward in surprise. Is this the strength of the Awakeners of Longxia Academy? From the nameplate on the chest of the young man with the blue brand, he had already identified that they, like Fang Xin, were awakened ones from Longxia Academy. To be precise, they should be hunters of voids. But the tacit understanding between them made Shuyi quite amazed. 2 shadow beasts were killed in the old city of Jincheng. Please send someone to clean up the battlefield. The young man in blue robe took out his mobile phone from his pocket, reported, and walked towards Shuyi's direction. After saying this, he put away his phone and extended his right hand towards Shuyi. Longxia Academy, Cao Sha. Are you okay? Shuyi grabbed the opponent's palm and was pulled up from the ground. He blinked and replied calmly, Shuyi. Don't worry, I'm fine. Senior, Sister Xin is so fierce, she actually killed a shadow beast by herself. A slightly childish voice came from behind. Shuyi looked back and saw a short-haired boy walking out with a face filled with wonder. If we had arrived a little later, her life might have been in danger. On the other side, a girl with slender legs and denim shorts walked out leisurely, with an indifferent expression, and she caught sight of Fang Xin by the far wall. She waved her right hand gently, and the shield that had been condensed in the air immediately dissipated. If I'm not wrong, are you also an awakened person? Cao Sha looked at Shuyi in front of him and suddenly asked. High school student, the ability that you just awakened on today's awakening day. Shuyi hesitated for a moment and nodded slightly. With Fang Xin alone, it is absolutely impossible to kill this shadow beast. Cao Xian spoke concisely, but his eyes were focused on Shuyi. Did you help her? If possible, could you change places with us and talk about this matter in detail? Don't worry, we are the 5th hunting team from Longxia College, and we have no ill intentions towards you. Of course I believe you. Shuyi nodded, surprisingly honest, but Sister Fang Xin just saved me, and I want to go check on her first. She's fine, she just fainted due to the energy shock. Cao Sha nodded, but if you're worried about her, you can take care of her a little bit. After saying this, he turned around again, looked at the corpses of the 2 shadow beasts in front of him, and said, Guoyan, Sha Li, collect blood samples and collect about 5 scales. He stood there, looking at the corpse of the shadow beast in front of him with slightly absent-minded eyes, full of thoughts. A high school student who was involved in the mirror world was actually able to help Fang Xin kill a shadow beast. Could it be that the kid just now has abilities above level A? How Fang Xin and the high school student killed the shadow beast made him very concerned. Senior, the collection is complete. Just when he was lost in thought, the voices of Guoyan and Sha Li finally brought his thoughts back. Yes, Cao Sha nodded. Bring Fang Xin and the high school student just now, let's leave first. He turned his head as he spoke, but his eyes remained fixed on the spot. Not far away, except for Fang Xin, who was leaning unconscious against the wall, where was Shui? That guy actually ran away. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.